Tex Watson, who had shot or stabbed all of the victims at the Tate and LaBianca murders, and who inflicted most of the fatal injuries, was not arraigned with the others at the main, Manson, trial, which covered both the Tate and LaBianca murders. Manson was accused of orchestrating both attacks, but the only defendants at the trial whose murder charges were for actually inflicting injuries on the LaBiancas were Van Houten and Krenwinkel. Unlike the others, Van Houten was not accused of the murders of Tate and her friends. Manson opposed his three female co-defendants, running a defense that he had asked them to commit killings. Van Houten did not appear to take the court seriously, later claiming to have been supplied with LSD during the trial, and giggled during testimony about the victims she testified to committing the murders she was charged with, and denied that Manson had been involved. An often cited example of how he seemed to exert control over Van Houten and the others was when Manson carved an X on his forehead and she and the other two women defendants copied him. In the latter stages of the trial they stopped mimicking him, Belliosi suggested, because they realized it was making the extent of his influence over them apparent. Van Houten dismissed three defense lawyers in succession for claiming her actions were attributable to Manson's control over her. When her lawyer was asking an expert witness about the effect of LSD on judgment, Van Houten shouted that, "This is all such a big lie. I was influenced by the war in Vietnam and TV." On March 29, 1971, she was convicted of murder along with the other defendants. During the sentencing phase of the trial, in an apparent attempt to exonerate Manson, Van Houten testified that she had committed a killing in which she was not, in fact, involved. She told a psychiatrist of beating her adopted sister, leading him to characterize her as a spoiled little princess and a psychologically loaded gun, and was adamant that Manson had no influence over her thought processes or behavior. Van Houten also told the psychiatrist that she would have gone to jail for manslaughter or assault with a deadly weapon without ever meeting Manson. When her lawyer, attempting to show she felt remorse, asked if she felt sorrow or shame for the death of Rosemary LaBianca, Van Houten replied, "Sorry is only a 5-letter word, and you can't undo something that is done." In cross-examination, Van Houten aggressively implicated herself in inflicting wounds while the victim was living, and severely wounding the victim, severing her spine, which might have been fatal by itself. She vehemently denied acting on instructions from Manson, and said a court-appointed attorney who had a lot of different ideas on how to get me off had told her to claim Manson ordered the killings. Van Houten was sentenced to be executed. She was the youngest woman ever condemned to death in California. No death row for female prisoners existed, and a special unit was built. The death sentences were automatically commuted to life in prison after the California Supreme Court's People v. Anderson decision resulted in the invalidation of all death sentences imposed in California prior to 1972. With a first-degree murder conviction, she was eligible for parole once she had served 7 years. In order to be released after 7 years, she would have had to have been granted parole at her first parole hearing. The governor would not have been able to rescind that parole, since California governors did not gain that power until Proposition 89 was passed by the voters on November 8, 1988. In his best-selling book Helter Skelter, prosecutor Vincent Belliosi said that his guess was that all three women would be released after 15-20 years.